Hello, everyone. Happy Friday, and welcome to another episode of Challenger Network News. I'm Brandon Bichler, partner at Elixirr. I'm very glad to welcome two guests today. I have Karina Oever, who's a partner at Elixirr. Hello, Karina.
Hi, Brandon.
And I have Ramyani Basu, partner at Kearney. Hi, Ramyani. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very good. Thank you, Brandon, for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us. It means a lot. So today is a third episode in a three-part series we've been doing this week on women in consulting. And just to tell you again a little bit of context of why we're doing this, the reason is, frankly, we have a problem. There are simply too few women leaders in consulting. And week on week, as we take on the toughest problems our clients face, we haven't seemed to able to tackle this problem in our own industry. So this week, we've been holding 3 sessions. On Tuesday, we spoke with women in consulting at the start of their careers. Yesterday, we spoke to women who have been very successful in consulting, but they're also at a stage in their personal life where they're faced with tough choices and challenges. And today, we're speaking to women leaders at the top of their respective firms, two partners. So it's really good to have both of you on today. We recognize this is only the start of what we hope is a coordinated effort across the consulting profession to tackle this challenge head on and make a real difference. It would really be good, maybe starting with you, Ramyani, just to hear a little bit about your background and your path to partner. What are some of the things that you've learned along the way? What helped you? What are some of the things that were critical for you as you achieved where you are today?
Thanks, Brandon. I think before even I go into the consulting part, I would say, if I go back to where I start, I'm born and brought up in India, engineer by background. If you come from India, in the generation I belong to, engineering wasn't a profession of choice for women when I did it. So early on in my life, I think it was my mom who actually was very, very clear that if you want something, you got to kind of go after it and fight it and get it. No one is going to give it to you in a silver plate. So I think that's been a very important value that has always driven for me. When I came to this country, I must say I felt like amidst all the different people, and when I joined consulting, I could sense that there was a feeling of lack of confidence. And this part from the fact that I'm very Indian, strongly Indian in the way I like to present myself. I'm very emotional. I like to talk about things. I want to talk about emotions, how everything matters to me. And I was told by one of the senior executives that point in time in my firm that, you are too emotional and maybe you wear too much of colorful clothes. You need to tone it down. And it was a point in time in my career, at that point, I was not confident enough to really push back. But then I realized if I have to change myself to fit in, then this is not a place for me. So I chose not to change. And I went through the ladder. I kind of looked at myself as I got to lead with content and I got to lead with my emotions, because that's powerful when you are in a business with people. You are in a business of creating value. Value is not just an equation of maths. It's value is an equation of how people connect with you. So I think over the time, some of the things that I would say I have learned, and I wish I had learned earlier, is being myself. Everyone else is taken. So be yourself, because that's the best form that you can represent. The second I would say is be confident. I remember in the early days, I would always think 3 times before I speak up. And later on, I realized half of the time people are speaking up are speaking a lot of rubbish. I'm like, why am I not even speaking up? So that was a big wake-up call for me. So, speak up, talk confidently. Yes, you might not know the answers, but that's so be it. No one has the answers. And finally, there is no one who is going to market you. You got to market yourself. No one has the time in consulting to think about you. So as I went through the ladder, I realized these aspects of, difficulties at the start were really shaping moments for me, because I knew how to stand for myself. I knew how to stand for others. And now as I have grown to be a partner, it's not just about having your own voice, but lending your voice to others, those who need it now. So, being confident. And as an American poet says, it takes confidence and courage to be yourself. So be yourself. That's my journey.
No, that's fantastic. I completely I'm nodding, as you can see. with what you're saying. Absolutely agree. What I do want to add is some of the things that have helped me that the organization has done, right? So take the lens from the organization's perspective and what an organization can do to help, and that have helped me along the way, right? So one is certainly making flexible working really work, right? So I certainly had a lot of flexibility, right? I work part-time for a good proportion of my my sort of middle years when I had my children, and I actually took breaks because I was traveling a lot, but then I wanted to kind of reconnect with my children. And so I took, maybe 2 week, 3 week, 4 week breaks to kind of reconnect and then go back and work again, right? So it's finding that balance, which is this constant juggling act that we have to do. I think the other one is also the ability to perhaps take a pause in client-facing work, because client-facing work is highly demanding, right, in consulting, where there are constant deadlines, you can't really control it, particularly at the middle level, right? And therefore, I had the ability to actually spend a couple of years just doing internal things, right? So doing kind of business development as well as intellectual capital development, a lot of research papers. So I remained in touch with the industry and I remained in touch with the teams, but I was not subject to the demands and of clients on a regular basis. So I think having those things in place certainly helped me as well.
Mm. I think you bring a very important point, Brendan, if it's okay to continue on that.
I'm going to just listen.
So I think you're touching on a very important point, because I think we as women also have this whole aspect of, maybe I'm generalizing, of self-guilt. I'm a mother of a 6-year-old, and there is always a question, am I doing enough as a mom? Am I able to balance both? And I think organizations and consulting firms particularly have to do a lot better job of making sure that we create that flexible workplace, like the way, Karina, you talked about, right? That, the different flexibility of doing service and doing great work for clients, with clients, even without clients, so that, you are still in that business, you are driving value for the business, but in different contexts and depending on your life situation. But I also feel that the whole aspect of, most of the consulting firms has the policies, but I think policies are one thing. It's about how you individualize it to the individual's need, making sure that all the stakeholders understands and buys in to the person's ambitions and their needs, which is quite unique to all of us. And that essentially is a very critical part. And that's where I feel like HR can go beyond just policies to making it the right personalized, to the whole point about customer centricity, right? That how do you drive customer centricity to us? That way, I feel like at Kearney, we really do it so individualized. We sit down with the person a lot before they're coming back from maternity. We allow them to have keep in touch days so that they are staying close to business. And it's not like a wow moment, oh my Lord, I've forgotten how to do business. Because I remember when I came back from consulting, from my maternity, I was really shaken. I was like, have I completely forgotten? Has my brain gone dead? So that is a very important support that we got to make sure that we give it to the senior woman. But also we got to enable men to have bigger paternity leave, because if you're talking of the next generation, they are looking at their partners and they want their partners to be equal, and their partners are also in consulting, so they should be able to support their partners at home to be able to get back to work. So I think it got to be both maternity and paternity, a kind of very important support that we got to be giving and allowing for, because not having enough women representation is not right. It's not a woman's problem, it's a social problem, it's a moral issue, it's an economic issue.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think it's also a good thing to do would be to also be quite flexible in terms of the way you approach flexible working, in terms of you test and learn, right? You try something, because at different stages of your child's age, you will want different things, right? Yeah. And so be flexible, right? So maybe it's about spending 4 days a week, cutting down to 4 days a week. Maybe next time it is actually going back to 5 days and then taking breaks, but try different things, be open, as you said, having that dialogue between the employee and the firm, I think will really help, and also kind of shaping it together and trying it. If it doesn't work, change it and try something else, right? And be open to that, because as we evolve and we grow in our careers, your needs change. So we need to just change as well, right? The policies have to change.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what we do with our clients, isn't it? We don't go in there with a pre-cut solution, or if we're good consultants, we don't go in with a pre-cut solution. We actually tailor everything that we do around, like you said, around a client's needs. It's about customer centricity. And so actually I'm really struck by the idea of, individualize it, make sure that if we're supporting a woman to through whatever period of her life that she needs to get through to help her get to achieve her objectives professionally, really making it a bespoke solution rather than set a policy and forget it, because that clearly doesn't work. I do want to take that. There's been a couple of questions that have come in. If I could just take one from Tessa Keene. She asks, how do you think we can better encourage junior women in consulting to identify and leverage their differences, i.e. being emotional, which you referred to, Ramyani, as strengths instead of viewing them as weaknesses?
Great.
Great question.
Go ahead, Ramyani.
A great question. And I'm just thinking, for me, this has been the reality, right? I'm still very emotional. My clients know that. But it's not actually a weakness. The fact that you can put your emotion on the table, the fact that you can show your vulnerability, the fact that you can talk about things that shows the human side of it is actually a lot more powerful. Nobody wants to deal with a robot, right? So it's not a weakness. I think it's a societal incorrect fine-tuning of our brains that emotions are wrong. I think emotions are more powerful. If we look at leaders in every walks of our lives, they have all led with emotions. So take the emotion to your advantage, and the way even consulting as an industry will get disrupted. Where the value would come is how you connect and how you made them feel. People forget what you say. People forget what you do. People never forget how you make them feel. So take that as an advantage and use your emotions to your power.
Yeah, and I think showing your emotions also builds better relationships, right? With your clients, with your colleagues, because they get to see the real you rather than this person that they think is inauthentic, right? And being able to do that just builds that stronger relationship. And it's a great way to, in consulting, it is about relationships, right? The deeper your relationships are with your clients, the more that they trust you, the more you become a trusted advisor to them. And I think it can be actually quite powerful. I do agree, though, that obviously, right, as we were growing up, right, I do remember that where you would get, feedback, oh, you're too emotional, oh, you're not, all sorts of things like that but I think those kinds of leaders are gone, right?
Exactly.
Right. So there are new leaders around and who value that. And so just remember that and actually try it out and embrace it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and just to add to the emotional thing, I think that goes for women and men.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think, I love what you said, Ramyani, at the beginning, being your authentic self. And whoever that is, we all, improve ourselves along the way. There's always things we can work on, but hiding your emotions, hiding who you are is certainly the wrong thing to do. It's about who you are. That makes you unique.
Yeah. And as you said, Ramyani, right? If they don't accept you for who you are, that's not the right place for you.
Exactly. Right? Exactly. Don't question your capability. Question if it's the right place.
Yeah, great question, Tessa. Thanks for writing in. And I do want to encourage others to please do ask us questions along the way. So you're, as leaders in the firms, you've talked a little bit about, there were so many nuggets in there, frankly. First of all, your first role model, Ramyani, was your mother, which was great. I picked that up as well. But, and this concept of don't just set policies. It's not about policies. It's about actually doing something that's bespoke, making the policy work, not just setting the policy. which sounds everything. But what about the environment? That was one theme that came up in some of the discussions with a couple of the consultants we spoke to. They talked about, honestly, they show up to a call, and here we are on these video calls, and suddenly 10 male faces pop up, and the conversation immediately shifts to the football on the weekend. And then, they were talking about how that's fine, but they don't step in and they don't feel comfortable, and they don't feel, welcome to that conversation. So what have you learned about setting the right environment, lessons for women leaders, and also lessons for leaders like myself, men leaders in the organization? How do we set the right environment to avoid that kind of situation?
I think I would say that, look, we all know diversity is critical in the consulting business. The question is, how do you take the diversity to inclusion? And the way I simply put it is that diversity is you inviting me to your party. Inclusion is you inviting me to the dinner table to eat with you. That's different, right? So essentially, the point about these kind of events as it happens, just call it out. I think women as genders, we have had a history of being excluded. So let's call out the exclusions as you see it as leaders. And now, because we are in the tables where we can make the change happen, for me, I always call out. So when I met to partner, I was the only female partner. I could see how things were always okay. Things that did not make big sense to me were okay to be discussed. Over time, I made the change happen. I started calling out. Why don't we discuss about this? I remember when I first talked in the partner meeting about, how my daughter was sick and I don't feel like working and I'm too tired. That's just me talking how I feel. And the truth is that was how I felt. And sometimes we just put so much persona to a conversation that is no more a real conversation. And I think the reality is so much more powerful if you can put that on the table. Because I said it, I could see few men starting to talk, oh my God, my son did this and my daughter did that. We are human beings first, consultant second, partner third. So let's not forget the order is how I deal with it. But essentially, I think there is a lot that got to be done in the right way. I think there's an element of driving the leadership as an inclusive leadership. So it starts with, do we know all our unconscious biases? Because we all have one, right? And knowing it, being aware of it, but then calling out those biases and getting trained on it. And it's not like one training. Every year every 6 months, actually, we have our unconscious bias training. Every time I go to the training, I remember, oh my Lord, I again did that. Because it's so in our DNA. And it's not done intentionally, it's unintentional, right? So that's one thing. And I think that should be part and parcel of how we get trained to be better leaders. I think there is also an element about how we set up projects and be open to clients about what works for others and what doesn't. Mm-hmm. And I think men leaders should take more charge of junior female in their organization when they're going through, the manager cohort is a very good point in time where you are actually thinking, do you want to start a family or not? And it's a difficult choice for a woman because you are equally ambitious. It's not questioning your ambition. It's about what is it, how do you make it happen? So I think men need to be much more empathetic in this whole thing because this is, we are in this game together. And simple things that you can put in place, which we have put right now in Kearney, is a Work Smart Charter. At the start of a project, we have who has what needs in a day or in a week. We talk about it. Like I always say to my team, guys, 5:30 to 7:38, I don't want to take calls unless it's absolutely needed. And no one dies in our profession. That's a good thing. So let's not have calls. But that doesn't mean I expect you guys to be on calls at 9 o'clock because that's when I come back to work. You guys, whatever I need to do, just give it back to me and then I will process it over the night. Everybody has their own stuff. Every week we do a pulse check. Guys, was that a great plan with no execution or did we execute on it? So I think there is an element of there's a big role of leadership to lead by example, leadership to really course correct and call out wrong behaviors and making sure that inclusivity is at the DNA of how we are running it. Because if we don't, then we are not setting great examples for the next generation as they come up. And we got to be creating a firm that's better than what we inherited.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Karina.
No, I was just going to say it's great to hear that. As in Elixirr, it's quite a smaller firm, so we don't really have, we don't have much formal policies, etc. But it's almost having that, as you said, Ramyani, setting the example, right? That, and being transparent about it, and working together and being open and having the conversation. I think a lot of it is also about us leaders being confident in pushing back to clients, right? Sometimes there is a need for that, right? When clients are overly demanding. I mean, I understand if there's some really pressing thing, as you said, nobody dies in consulting, right? And really being able to push back when needed, right? And being able to do that, and I which I think really helps the teams. But I love your work smart idea. I have, my children are older, right? So I don't. It's easier for me now to kind of work kind of the same hours as everybody. But I like that idea of actually at the beginning of the project, let's kind of think about that, and let's see and try to make it work for everybody, right?
And you know what we have done with our Work Smart Challenge? With my team, I have said that, guys, I have now gone into a virtual walking challenge. Otherwise, I'll come out of this COVID and I'll be the most unfit person. And I don't want that. So every afternoon, we have got a call where we all walk and we talk through the story. And it's an hour walk. And we always compare with each other that how is our pace against each other. The fact is, why are we all looking at slides? And we should be able to tell a story without slides. So that was a push I did. And I think it's also about staying fit, right? We can't be using this profession as a sprint. It's a marathon. If we have to do this profession till 65 when we retire, I don't even see how I'm going to do that. But the fact is, it has to be treated as a marathon. So we pace up rightly and get there to the peak.
That's right. That's right. Well, there are so many nuggets in this conversation. I would love to continue for an hour, to be honest. But as I mentioned at the beginning, this is really just a start. We want to start the dialogue. And Ramyani and Karina, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I would ask everyone who's on and watching us now, please continue commenting and asking questions. I've seen we've just had another question come through. We'll stay engaged and we'll continue the dialogue in your channel of choice. Also, beyond today, as we wrap up these live sessions, I just wanted to reiterate, this is just the start of something that we want to do more. So we'll be having some more events coming around this topic. And I hope that all of you have learned something. I know this week I've learned a tremendous amount talking to everyone. And then there are already some things that I realized that I need to do differently as a leader. So stay tuned as we do much more on this topic. And again, Ramyani and Karina, I want to thank you for joining us and kicking off the conversation. I wish you a great weekend, and we'll see you on the next Challenger Network News. Thanks both.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.